Welcome to Studio D on the campus of the University of Oklahoma. This is Sooner Sports Pad. And now, your host, Chloe Sparks.
Sorry guys, we're tossing it to break real quick, but we'll be back. All right. Just going to break. Welcome back to Sooner Sports Pad, guys. We are so sorry about those technical difficulties, but we are ready to talk sports with you again. Guys, the last time that OU lost back-to-back was in 1999. But now we're about to play Texas this weekend, and I want to talk about some players that we are going to be looking out for. I know mine, and there is a new number one in town, Seth McGowan, ladies and gentlemen. Our true freshman running back. McGowan is a player who has proven he can hang with the best of them on the gridiron. Only 3 games into the season, and guys, he's tallied almost 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And get this, he's ranked 13th overall, the running back in the country. With Ramondre Stevenson still suspended for a couple more games, look to see McGowan continue to show his strength and clarify the workload on offense. Now, guys, tell me, who will you be looking out for?
All right, well, my player to watch this weekend is Bookie Radley-Hiles. The junior defensive back had an off game against Iowa State, but I think he's going to show out at the showdown against Texas. Take a look at this hit against Kansas State tight end Blaise Gammon. He is constantly providing great coverage for the Sooners defense. He knows how to tackle. If we can just get rid of those penalties, he will come back so strong this week. I mean, Bookie is fast, and that's going to come in handy as Texas is probably going to rely on their run game this weekend.
That's right. And on that same note, Lindsay, I've got my eye on Ronnie Perkins, who's obviously a guy that OU wasn't anticipating having this weekend against Texas because he was suspended. Now, there were some reports this last Saturday that suspension's been lifted and he's expected to play. Lincoln Riley said today in his Big 12 coaches teleconference that Perkins' status hasn't changed, but those that released the initial reports stood by them. And so we'll have to see if Perkins is active or not this weekend. Regardless, if he is, that's huge for Oklahoma because he's a guy who can get after the quarterback, and that is what the Sooners need right now. 1 sack each of the last 2 games. They're not playing well in the trenches, and Perkins is by far the most talented player on that front line. And so if they get him back, it's only going to help their chances of containing Sam Ehlinger and being able to shut down that Texas offensive attack.
Now let's take a listen at Crimson Critique to hear what some of the players and coaches had to say about those losses.
Texas is a tough team. It's going to be a tough game, and we need to come fully prepared for it. So, I mean, this week of practice has to be, off, it has to be ridiculously good. And, we have to attack it the right way. We can't hold our heads down, because we've lost 2 in a row. We have to get over that, get back up, and go on to the next one. So,
the finish aspect of things will never go away, and it's very difficult to play any high-level football through 3 quarters and not do it in the 4th quarter and then come out with a win.
There's more to hear up next with Sooners soccer player Reagan Glisson. Stick around for when we return.
Thank you to our Cornerstone Television partners, OU Medicine, Anheuser-Busch, and the OU College of Professional and Continuing Studies, and our community partners, Landers Auto Group, Coca-Cola, and OU Medicine.
Welcome back to Sooner Sports Pad, everyone. Sooner Sports Pad's Kemper Ball had the chance to catch up with Sooner senior forward Reagan Glisson. She just transferred here, and so let's take a look at what she has to say.
Tonight we're joined by OU Soccer's Reagan Glisson. Reagan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So Reagan, you guys had your first home soccer game against Texas Tech on Friday. How did it feel to get that first home game under your belt, especially with such an unusual off season due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think as a team, we're taking every game as just a new opportunity to play together, just because, I mean, everything is so limited, and with it being home, just all the great feelings and like the passion of just being able to play for your school, your home field, I think really set a tone for our team before the game, and the fact that it was Texas Tech and we had came off the loss. So we just wanted to be able to prove ourselves.
Yeah. So like you said, you were coming off a loss and you managed to pull out a tie against Texas Tech on Friday. And that was a wire-to-wire game, went all the way down to the end. What's the mentality like heading into next week after a close game like that?
I think as a team, we just have a chip on our shoulder to show like the rest of the conference that the rankings don't mean anything and that we're here to move up in the rankings and make a difference with Coach Carr and Coach Cad and Coach Murray. So I think that just as a team and our day-to-day practices of competing against each other as if it is a game, I think has just allowed us to really make multitude of steps forward than, weeks ago. So I think it's going to be a good game against Iowa State. So.
Yeah. All right, Reagan, you're a veteran. You've been around for a while, but you're new to this team. What's it been like as a transfer from Georgia, coming in, new squad, and you're an instant impact player?
Well, it's just a blessing to have that opportunity to be an impact player on another team as well. But I think coming from Georgia to Oklahoma, it was a big difference between being at my home school where I pretty much grew up to move 18 hours away was something that I had to adjust to. And I think it took time, but just with the family multitude and like family attitude of this team and the coaches who were just there to support you no matter what, I think allowed everyone that are new, including me, to just feel at home and went out, work for their teammates and work for their coaches. And that's, I think, why we will succeed.
All right, Reagan, before we get out of here, tell us what the team's looking at heading into your Friday game against Iowa State.
We're just looking at to improve our game in every little detail. If that's holding the ball in the corner to make sure that we don't let up a goal in the last minute, then that's what we're going to do. I think each game's just going to get better and better. As you can see from Texas Tech, we just, I feel like we were a completely different team. So I think that's just going to continue throughout the season.
All right, that's all the time we've got. Thank you so much to OU Soccer's Reagan Glisson for sitting down with us. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Temper. Well, it's safe to say that Lincoln Riley and the Sooners didn't expect, nor did anyone, that this team was going to scuffle to a 1-2 start. But it hasn't been all that long, just 4 years, in fact, since Oklahoma was in an identical position. And if there's any encouragement to be drawn from the Sooners' recent struggles, it's that there is precedent for a dramatic turnaround. Let's examine the parallels between this 2020 team and the 2016 squad that rallied from immense adversity.
The Houston Cougars are the new darlings of college football. They knock off Oklahoma 33-23.
It's never easy to come to terms with the fact that you've failed to meet expectations. But in 2016, that's exactly what Bob Stoops and Oklahoma had to do, and they had to do it much earlier than anyone could have imagined. In the season opener, Tom Herman's Houston Cougars stunned the Sooners in a neutral site upset. 2 weeks later, Ohio State rolled into Norman and shellacked OU 45-24. And just like that, the Sooners' dreams of a second consecutive trip to the college football playoff were dead in the water. But a young, electrifying quarterback named Baker Mayfield refused to allow his team to lay down and die.
We do some of the hardest stuff very well. It's the basic things and the easiest things that we do not do very well right now. And so that's the type of thing he's talking about. We're not far off, because if we can just do the minor things right, the little details, then we'll be going on all cylinders.
After the home defeat to the Buckeyes, the Sooners caught fire. Mayfield and senior wide receiver Dede Westbrook sparked shootout victories over TCU, Texas, and Texas Tech. From there, the wins just kept piling up. Oklahoma won their final 10 games of the season en route to the Big 12 championship. Mayfield and Westbrook went to New York as Heisman Trophy finalists, and the Sooners stomped Auburn in the Sugar Bowl. Fast forward 4 years, and Oklahoma is almost certainly feeling a sense of deja vu. For the first time since that 2016 campaign, the Sooners are unranked and without a viable path to the playoff. But Spencer Rattler sees the same signs of life in his team that Mayfield did.
We make a lot of plays. We move the ball down the field well. We got a lot of great receivers, running backs. We got a great line. And we do a lot of good things, and once we put it all together, it'll be good.
That outlook doesn't make these two losses any easier to swallow, but it does inspire confidence that the Sooners can reverse their fortunes.
That frustration's got to continue to fuel us, and we've got to continue to push to be what we can, because we know what we can be, and we're not there yet. And I know nobody wants to hear it, but the reality is we're close. We're closer than even we think right now because we're so disappointed in the end result, but we're close.
And this weekend's matchup might be just what the doctor ordered. Nothing lifts a team's spirits like a victory over a bitter rival. On tap is the Red River Showdown. Yes, it's been an ignominious start to the season for Oklahoma, but it's not the end of the line. The Sooners have been here before. Lincoln Riley has been here before, albeit as a coordinator and not a head coach. But if Riley and his team can channel the same Sooner magic that reared its head in 2016, there's no reason why history can't repeat itself in 2020.
Look at Parker putting in that overtime, everyone. Look at him. All right, guys, well, now it is time for face-off. Are you guys ready?
Absolutely.
We're going to fight tonight. Let's do it.
Yeah? Okay, so I think we all can agree that OU needs to see a win this weekend. So tell me, let's bring on the good juju. What has been your favorite Oklahoma comeback?
All right, well, I have to go with men's basketball in the game against TCU back in March before the pandemic. The Sooners were trailing by 19 points after halftime, but Oklahoma came back with forward Brady Manick's bucket, tying it up 76-76. Then guard Austin Reeves drives into the lane with 1 second left, scoring for the Sooners 78-76. And Sooner Austin Reeves scored 41 points this game, and Brady Manick went on to be named the Jim Thorpe Athlete of the Year. I mean, a great comeback. I'm ready for basketball season to be back.
That was a fun game to watch, Lindsay. But I tell you what, when I think comebacks, and maybe there's a little recency bias here. When I think comebacks, I think back to November 16th, 2019, when the Sooners were in Waco taking on Baylor. And I tell you what, this was the game that defined Jalen Hurts' legacy as a Sooner. This game was over, folks. This game was over. Baylor had Oklahoma in a 28-3 hole. McLean Stadium was jumping. The Sooners had no business getting back in this game, let alone winning. But the defense pitched a shutout down the stretch, no points allowed in the second half, and lo and behold, Hurts comes out and fires 4 touchdown passes, and Gabe Burkich caps off the rally with a 34-yard field goal to lift the Oklahoma Sooners to a 34-31 victory, the largest comeback in football, of course, in the school's illustrious history. This was a fun one for me in particular because I was actually there covering the game. Best sporting event I've ever watched live. Not going to forget that one anytime soon.
Oh, I didn't turn off the TV after half, so...
That was a great game. I was a little bit on the edge of my seat. But all right, it's time for second question. You think you guys are ready?
Absolutely.
I'd say so.
All right, so in celebration of it being OU Texas weekend, tell us about your favorite OU Texas game.
All right, my top OU Texas game was, of course, the battle in 2000. Now, this game, the Sooners cleaned up with a 63-14 sweep. Oklahoma running back Quentin Griffin set an NCAA record with 6 touchdowns that game. And OU's defense was also on point this game, allowing only 7 rushing yards from the Longhorns. Bob Stoops was head coach and tag team with QB Josh Heupel. And don't forget that this was the year Oklahoma went undefeated, winning the program's first national championship.
Josh Heupel, South Dakota kid. He could sling it a little bit. No, again, there might be a little recency bias involved here, but I'm going to kick it back to the Big 12 championship game in 2018 because in my lifetime, for my money, that was the most anticipated, most hotly contested game between OU and Texas that I have witnessed. It was the rematch. Because, as you'll recall, Texas had beaten Oklahoma at the Cotton Bowl, 48-45 earlier in the season. The Sooners still had an outside shot at the college football playoff, but they needed this victory. And Kyler Murray and his squad showed up in a big way. Of course, he tossed those 2 touchdown passes to Grant Calcaterra and hit CeeDee Lamb for a third. And who can forget this play? Trey Brown off the edge on the corner blitz, burying Sam Ehlinger. That was one of the most memorable plays in Oklahoma history in any sport, any time period. That was such a fun game, and of course, Oklahoma parlayed it into a college football playoff berth.
Love to see it.
Okay, guys, third round. Show me what you have this week for your viral video.
All right, my viral video, I mean, we're all football fans when we were younger. I mean, some of us were toddlers, if not babies, when we first watched our NFL game. Take a look at this dad and his newborn son, not even a day out of the womb, and he's watching NFL Sundays.
I'll tell you what,
So
it looks like his dad's got him watching the Vikings. I hope he's not raising him as a Minnesota fan, because if so, he's setting him up for a life of disappointment. But one way or another, no, you gotta have real good hands to be a wide receiver at the collegiate level. But it's not as often that you see defensive backs with the ability to make phenomenal snags. However, if you're playing defensive back at a top program like Clemson, every so often you get a play like that. Check out Andrew Booth. Reminiscent of Odell Beckham's infamous catch back in 2014, spearing it with one hand. I tell you what, that kicking ball.
Okay, guys, I have one last final question for you. Do you guys consider this a rebuilding year for Oklahoma?
Chloe, I'm going to have to say yes, that it is a rebuilding year for Oklahoma. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we have pretty young players. We're a young team. We have Marvin Mims, Spencer Rattler, Anton Harrison, all true or redshirt freshmen with not a lot of experience. Yes, they're great players, but still new to the collegiate level of play. We're making lots of mistakes that new players tend to make, like missing tackles, and our defensive backs were swatting the ball instead of trying to catch for an interception. And these are rookie mistakes that leave room for penalties like pass interference, which we saw that this weekend, it can make or break a game. But, you know, there are a lot of other factors, like the pandemic resulting in no spring game, and there was a delay for preseason practices. So I think this is a rebuilding year for us.
Yeah, you know what, Lindsay, let's just mail it in this season, chalk it up as a learning experience, and come back in 2021. No, of course not. This is not a rebuilding year for Oklahoma. And I think the issue with the rebuild mentality is that it implies that the primary objective in the here and now is not to win football games, it's to set yourself up for future success. But what's the best way to set yourself up for future success? It's to win football games. And Oklahoma has the players to do it. You mentioned McGowan, you mentioned Mims, Spencer Rattler's a star in the making. It's pretty clear after the Iowa State loss that right now Oklahoma doesn't have the best 22 in the starting lineup. But if I'm Lincoln Riley, I'm finding out who those 22 guys are, giving everybody a chance, emptying the barrel, and putting myself in a position to contend for a 6th consecutive Big 12 championship, because that's not out of the realm of possibility, even if the college football playoff is.
I like that passion, Parker. All right, guys, with all that passion being said, let's vote. Cheer loudest for whoever you think won face-off. First, we have Lindsay Gibbs. Okay, decent crowd. Okay, now let's give it up for Parker. Man, those sounded awfully similar, but I think I'm gonna have to give it to Lindsay for the first win of Face Off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, guys, we'll stick around because we have all the sports that you should watch for when we get back. Volleyball is taking a short trip to Waco to play the Bears on Thursday and Friday at 6. Cyclones will be back on OU's campus on Friday to face the Sooners in soccer at 7. And on Saturday, women's tennis will begin competing in the Big 12 series. The golf ladies are also going to be added on Saturday, playing in the Betsy Rawls Invitational. Lastly, in case I need to remind you, this weekend is OU Texas, baby. Kickoff is at 11 a.m. again. And with all that being said, it's time for Sports Pad Trivia. Are you guys up for another challenge?
Bring
Let's
it on.
do it.
All right, guys, so the analyst with the most correct answers wins. First question, who is OU's women's basketball's all-time leader in scoring?
Ooh. I'm going to have to go with, do you want to?
Go ahead. Do you have a guess?
Sarah Platt? No?
Not her.
Courtney Paris.
Courtney Paris, yes, sir. Parker Thune takes the first points. All right, Lindsay, I feel a comeback coming. How many national championships has the OU softball team won?
6.
Mm-mm.
4.
A little lower. That's it. Parker on the dot. You're on fire tonight. 2 for Parker. Lindsay still at 0, but I feel it. It's coming, Lindsay. Which Sooner wide receiver tallied the most receiving yards in a single game?
Oof, I don't know this one.
Guys, he's
You?
recent.
Is that Hollywood Brown?
It is.
Oh,
Marquise
Hollywood
Brown.
I'm sorry, Hollywood.
With 245. All right. How many OU men's basketball teams made the Final Four? I could count them on one hand.
Probably 3. 2?
Is it 4?
I could count them on one hand, though.
So it's 5.
And you said 2, 3, and
It's
4.
5.
All right, yeah, it's 5, and I'm giving that point
Process
to
of
Lindsay
elimination.
just because I think she deserves it.
Oh, thanks.
Yep, guys, it was 5, and that was in the years 39, 47, 88, 02, and 16.
We don't talk about that.
2016 was the year.
2016 year.
Parker, what do you want to talk
Was
about?
a
Which
pretty
year
good
of basketball do you want to talk about?
Not 2016 because they got to the Final Four and then it got ugly.
Yeah?
That was a good game to watch, though. I mean,
No, that was not a good game to watch. Every other game in the tournament was
it
a
was
great
an
game to
exciting
watch.
game. We were in the Final Four.
Yeah, and got beat by 44 points.
Okay,
So,
guys, you know what?
consider that excitement.
I'm giving you one last thing to just decide who the final winner is, okay? This trumps everything. Best dance move, let's go.
Ooh, you start us out.
Oh, shoot. I got to start us out?
Parker
I don't know,
goes
I've been
first. Hey,
trying to-
Parker, you have 5 seconds, all right?
I've been trying to learn
Your
the
turn
moonwalk,
is
but I don't
skip,
really
Lindsay,
have it down
let's see
yet.
it.
So, can you moonwalk?
No, not in these heels. Are you kidding?
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning into Sports Pad. We'll see you again next week. Same place, same time. Good night.